And you've just heard the latest single from SheBeat, Remember Love, and I'm delighted to be joined by SheBeat now. Hello, Jodie.
Hello.
So first of all, what can you tell us about Remember Love?
Well, it's a love song, and it's classic SheBeat, 2.5 minutes, hopefully catchy and simple, but hopefully lovely. I think it's lovely.
I think that's the perfect summing up of it. But I think actually it is very much you, because I think of your music as being in that tradition of almost a classic 3-minute pop song, or under 3 minutes as in this case, which was something that you kind of think of more maybe in the 50s and 60s than you do now. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
It's, it's probably partly that I have a really short attention span. But it is because I grew up loving the music from the 60s, and I felt probably, I don't know what decade it was where the songs all became 4-minute, 5-minute. I feel like sometimes songs are longer because people think that's how long a song needs to be, as opposed to what it needs to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, because I'm a fan of a kind of 3-minute pop. I mean, I love my punk and stuff like that. And, a 3-minute pop song, you can almost say anything you want to within that time. But if you look at the average times of pop songs, they tend to be between 4 and 5 minutes. And often, sometimes that's to allow a guitar solo or something like that. But,
Well, I was just going to say, actually, being a solo artist, it means that I've never had to think about gaps for a good big guitar solo or any kind of jazz flute solo, or but in the future, I'm open to being a bigger entity, and so maybe those things will come into play, because I think that SheBeat, the sort of the in and out pop song, it is very much what I pin my flag to. I think Jimi Hendrix is famous for saying you only need 2 minutes.
yeah.
And if it's good enough for Jimmy, who
Well,
am I?
absolutely. That's 2 minutes of his guitar solo, right enough, but absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you describe your music to people when folk like me ask? What's your kind of answer that you have?
It's hard, actually.
Yeah.
I think, I'm a huge music fan, and so I think about the things that I've loved to listen to, which is 60s pop and 90s indie, somehow mixed into a big pot with my own take on things. So it's hopefully alternative indie folk pop, or it's really hard to like
Yeah.
pigeonhole, especially, because each song isn't necessarily exactly, hopefully not exactly the same. So some songs are a bit folkier and some songs are a bit poppier, but hopefully I set out to make music that's quite easy listening and enjoyable to listen to. This latest one I feel is a perfect, I'm calling it my slowy dance, to do a slowy to.
And you're making the music, you're quite within your right to say to folk like me, you tell me what you think of it. It's up to you to do that, which is absolutely fair. But
I just like making it. I don't really care what pigeonhole it goes in.
No, exactly. It's when people have to then, put you in pigeonholes, that can be the tricky business.
Oh no, you have to do it, don't you? You do have to do it so that people can kind of find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jumping off points.
Your mix, as you say, of kind of bringing in a kind of 90s indie stuff stands out. I think it makes you sound kind of different to a lot of people out there. So how have you found making music in the last year or so? It's a kind of question that everyone's been asking, but it's been because you've released quite a lot during that time.
Yeah, so previously I'd done the traditional go to a studio or a studio environment, record for a day or 2 days, and then publish what you made in that time. But lockdown has presented a completely different situation. And early in lockdown, I wrote Lockdown Limbo, which was very much, inspired by, at that point, 6 weeks of being told to stay at home, which was really unusual. I'm a very going out to gigs and socializing kind of a person, so I'd never I'd never stayed at home so much. And so I wanted to put a track out, but it presented difficulties with regards recording, so I think I did my vocal on my iPhone mic under my duvet and sent it to my producer Ian, who put that together. And then I've since moved to Edinburgh, and we've recorded at his home studio setup.
Right. So
so it's all been home recordings, which has been it's the pros are you can turn up in your pajamas.
Yeah.
And the cons are you might not turn up at all because you might just watch Netflix all day.
It is incredible how people have found a way to continue to make music, by hook or by crook, really. And do that. Not many people have moved to another city to do it, but people have managed a way to do it. Has that been important to you to keep on doing it? When, as you say, that there's not been the opportunity to go out to gigs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I used to gig every month, and I did a few. I've done over the last year. I've done some online gigs, but it's very strange because you just gig into yourself, really, and there is audience interaction to an extent, but it's still an empty room essentially, or well, the cat's sometimes there, but it's not the buzz, it's not the connection that you have normally as a live performer. And so I wanted to be creative and be musical in that time, and so to create tracks is the thing to do, isn't it? It's kind of like, what did you do during lockdown? And some people made bread, and I made SheBeat tracks.
No, it is absolutely that thing. That will be the question in decades to come. With playing live in mind, do you have plans now that things are beginning to open up, particularly in Edinburgh? I have to say, with the festival beginning, have you got plans to do some live gigs?
Yeah, so normally when I move to a new city, I'll be out doing making music friends every week. But like we've discussed, everything's been shut down, and music hasn't been allowed until I think this very week, live music. So I've managed to get a couple of busking spots at the Edinburgh Festival. So I'll be doing those this week, and maybe later into August if the opportunity arises. Really can't wait to get back to live music. Obviously in a safe, I don't want people to be unsafe about these things, but it's I really missed it. Yeah. I used to bang on all the time about the magic of live music and how it's it's there and then it's gone, and in between it's a beautiful magical thing. Yeah. But so I've really missed it, and I can't wait to get back. So if anybody has a gig for me, give me a ring.
And I think you're right. The desire of people who just love their music to go out, whether it's the people playing on stage or the people like myself or in the crowd watching, they just want to kind of get back to that.
Yeah, I've bought loads of tickets to go and see gigs myself. I'm a big fan of I'm a punter as well as a performer. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to see Stanley Odd this weekend, and they're a band that I've only recently discovered, and I absolutely love them. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Fantastic. And do you have any plans to release anything else in the near future, or is Remember Love it for a wee while?
So at the beginning of the year, I had these lofty ambitions to release a single every month. And then the paperwork caught up with me very quickly, and I thought that was a terrible idea. What on earth was I thinking? So I've decided that it's probably every few months, every 3 or 4 months is a good idea to put out some new material, because obviously with all the streaming places, there doesn't seem to be much merit. I don't know what your experience of this is recently, but there doesn't seem to be much merit in album making or EP making. It's all about the song.
Yeah.
And it stands alone. And so I've got a couple of other singles that I'm hoping to release before the end of the year. Haven't recorded them yet, but I'm kind of like thinking about the arrangements and whether I can collaborate with anyone locally. That would be fun. So see what happens.
I'm sure you'll find plenty of people willing to collaborate, because I get the feeling, in fact, it's already happening, that there are collaborations that have come about through people making connections during lockdown, you know, musicians that went, oh, I really like your stuff, you know, let's try and do something. And the results of that are starting to come out now, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's been an incredible, obviously it's been a ridiculously difficult year. I mean, I lost my job last summer, and I know lots of other people lost their jobs and livelihoods, and certainly people who music for a living have had a terrible year. But hopefully there'll be some silver linings and, like you say, some amazing magical connections that were made online that wouldn't have otherwise been forged.
Yeah.
You've always got to find the positive in a situation.
Absolutely. And if you can find it this year after Out the Wall, you've really got a good positive take on things.
Yeah.
Jodie, thank you so much for taking time to have a chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for supporting new music.
Mal, it's always a pleasure. And this is SheBeat's previous single, Homecoming Queen.